Before we get started, I just want to remind you that this is cheating. This is third-party software. This is a bot, and it can and probably will get you banned. So before you go any further, if you're worried about that, if you have any issues with that, just always remember that that can and almost always does happen at some point, and you need to accept that before you even use the bot. Hello YouTube, this is Kolbot Forever bringing another installation video. This will just be an updated version of basically the ones I already have on YouTube that are still essentially the ones that would be the easiest and most useful to use. However, I can't get the SVN checkout or the download process to work with those online anymore. I'm sure for a single player it probably wouldn't make any difference. But this BlizzHackers version of Kolbot is the one that's currently working for me. And again, I can't get the SVN checkout to work with this one. However, the download does work. So either way, that's what I'm going to show. That's what I'm going to use for the video. Before I get started, I just want to say thanks to MF22. He has been on Atoll as well as BlizzHackers, and I'm sure other places as well, keeping this alive and helping people out for years now. So I just wanted to give him a quick shout out and say thanks, because there was a few things I saw in the forums that were related to him, and he was helping people. So it's important to make sure that we recognize people for what they do. So the first step is going to be click the green code button and then click on download zip. Like I said, I can't get the SVN checkout to work, so just use this instead. Go to wherever you downloaded it and extract it. I recommend 7-zip. I'll put it down in the description for those of you who don't have it. Extract here is fine because I have it inside of a folder. And then the next step is going to be configuration. So we'll start on that next. So the next thing we want to do before we get started configuring is to download two dependencies, Microsoft Visual C++ 2010 and .NET Framework 4.0. Links in the description below. You do need both of these. They are dependencies. If you do not download and install them, the bot will either not work or function the way it's supposed to, or will not work at all. In the past, my experience with this is if you don't download it, it won't work at all. So make sure you do so, and make sure that you go down to the description and get that done before we proceed any further. Next step is to right-click on d2.exe, go to Properties, Compatibility, make sure Run as Administrator is checked. I have it selected for Windows XP Service Pack 2. That's an old habit from the older version. This one does seem to work pretty good without that being turned on, but if you're having issues, I strongly suggest you try that. Make sure you hit Apply and then hit OK. When you open the program, you'll get your user account going to pop up, most likely. You have to click Yes. Close this. We're going to go to keys. That's the first step here, in my opinion, that we need to do, because without keys, we can't get on the internet and play. If you're playing single player, this isn't going to matter nearly as much. Click here on this blank space. It's not very intuitive, but that's where we're going to put our name of the key. This is for the bot program name, not for the in-game name, like it would show up as so-and-so is using your CD key. Where it says name, that is where it is going to say that in-game, so make sure you name it accordingly. I like to name them 1 through 10 million or whatever, just so it's easier for me to understand. And then you're going to plug in your classic and expansion key here. If you don't have 16 and 26 digit keys work. No spaces altogether and no dashes are needed for this, so just plug those in and you're good to go. If you have installed the game with a legitimate key, you actually won't need to do this, and I'll show you how to use that in the next step. But if you're like me and you have lots of keys that you purchased and those keys are not installed with Diablo 2, this is how you will do it. At the very end, make sure you hit apply and make sure you hit OK at the very end to close that, and then we can move on to the profile creation. Okay, step number 4 is to make a profile, so you're going to hit this add button right here. This profile name does not need to be your in-game name. This can be it could be any name basically. I strongly suggest you don't make it too long. In the past, having a really long profile name can cause issues. Same thing with your account name, same thing with your password and your character name. So try to keep these as short as possible. I know that's maybe counterintuitive for some people because they feel it's not safe or whatever, but trust me, it will benefit you in the future, because I've had multiple people report that, especially the password and the profile name being too long, have caused them issues. So, make it simple, right? Account is an account that you've already made. I'm assuming this is the account you're going to want to bot with. So make sure that you plug that in correctly. Password is the password for that account that's already created. Remember, the bot will not create an account for you to go and do the runs that I'm going to show you. I'm just going to show you the D2bot lead entry point for this. I have videos on all the other entry points, so I think just getting it up and running will be the thing that'll work best. Character name, so just exactly how it is in the game will work. And then game info and password is going to be game name and password, excuse me. That's what this is. So if you want your game names to start with something, and if you want them to have a certain password, you can put that in there. Difficulty, you can choose obviously whichever one you want. This is which realm you're on, so East, West, Europe, and Asia. Make sure you get that right, because if you don't, it's obviously not going to work. And as you can see, we have single, open, host, TCP, and join. For my purposes for this video, I'm going to be showing BattleNet. I think that's the majority of people are probably going to use it that way. Game path is where your Diablo 2 installation is. Mine defaulted to it. Yours may not. You may have to go looking around for it. And you're going to select game if you don't have extensions turned on, or game.exe if you do. Parameters, there's a number of parameters. I'm not necessarily going to go into them here. I will recommend the no sound parameter, which is -in-s, just for something that I think is useful. If this is running and you're doing something else and you don't want it to pop up with the really loud Diablo 2 music, it's very useful to have it set up that way. And then for our entry point, we're going to do D2bot lead. And then the key list, we can select the key that we had earlier. If you are somebody that has Diablo 2 installed and it has the correct key already installed to the installation that you've selected, and that installation is going to have to be the same as this game path, then you can just leave it blank. I do recommend adding all your keys though, it's just easier, and if you're going to have lots of accounts and everything, you don't want to have 600 copies of Diablo 2 that you have to install with the keys that are working for it. You only need to do that once, and then you can do, you can just come in here and add all the extra keys whenever you want. And then you would just hit, in this case I'm going to hit visible. If you don't click this, it will minimize. You can still bring it back up, but in my case I'm going to go ahead and just do it like that. Then you would hit apply, hit OK, make sure you hit apply, and now we're set up. And the next step is going to be creating a character configuration file for the character that you're going to use. So we're not done yet. This is basically just the internal stuff for D2bot, Kolbot in general. So we have to do the character configuration file, and that will be in the next part. It's going to be pretty lengthy, but I'm going to try to go over as much as I can with you guys to explain it. And yeah, so I'll see you there. Okay, so now that you set up your profile, we need to set up the character configuration file. To do this, we're going to click on our profile, we're going to hit start, and if everything went according to plan, if everything's correct, it should log in and create the character configuration file. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. It will throw an error, but it's meant to, so. Okay, as you can see, bad attack configuration, don't expect your bot to attack, and it even shows the attack skills. It shows you that they're all -1, which, as you can imagine, is not going to work. So you're going to press your home and your space button on your keyboard. It will close the bot, and then at the bottom you will see that it will say paladin.darkvigilante.js has been created. Please configure bot and start again. And that's exactly what we want. And then from here, we have to open up Kolbot, the folder that we downloaded and extracted to. Go to d2bs, Kolbot, libs, config, and then in your configuration file you will see a new one. If you even looked in here before, which you may not have, but there will be a new one. And then for me, I'm going to use Notepad++, so I'm going to say edit with that, and we can get started on editing the character configuration file. Okay, we're going to get started with the character configuration editing, and this is all very important. If you don't get this right, you can have issues, problems, and the bot may or may not work depending on what you've gotten wrong. So I'm going to do my best to try to guide you through that and to get this set up so it works at least in a basic sense first. Go to line 25 first. I'm using Notepad++, link in the description. Color codes and allows you to tell what's going on a lot easier. Strongly suggest that you use it. Go to, like I said, line 25, change this to true, all lowercase, and make sure there isn't a space between the semicolon and the true. Make sure it's right next to one another. Otherwise, the bot will not work, and it will just sit there and give you an error. Lines 45 all the way down to 149 are where you're going to want your bot to actually work. So as you can see, you can do Corpse Fire, you can do the Mausoleum, you can do Bijibosh, Rakanishu. More importantly, you can do Andargo, Mephisto, Diablo, Bale, etc. So if you want to do one of these, you'll have to read it and then decide whether or not you want it. So if you do, let's say we wanted to do Corpse Fire, it would make it true. And then there's a second part to Corpse Fire that says Clear Den. So this is the Den of Evil is what it's referring to. So do you just want it to go in and kill Corpse Fire, or do you want it to clear the entire Den of Evil every time it does it? Say I would do want that. I want it to clear the entire Den of Evil. Not sure why you'd want to because Den of Evil is trash. But let's say you did. You can change this to true also, and then, of course, it will clear the entire den and kill Corpse Fire as well. Again, I'm going to skip a lot of this. I don't think there's a reason to go over everything. I'm going to stop in important places that I think are necessary, and that's pretty much about it. Like I said, you should just let the bot run. Come back in here and change these settings later, but for now we're just going to do the basic setup or what I consider important places to stop and look at, and then we'll leave the rest for you to change and edit as you feel fit later on. Uh, Come down to line 377 and look at the public mode. Public mode is usually set to 0 to disable. If this is not set to 1, 2, or 3, you cannot accept or invite anybody to your party. So if you are running teammates, if you are running MF helpers, if you are running public chaos, bail, etc., it will not do that. So make sure you change that. A lot of people have asked me in the past how to do that, and so I just want to make sure that that's in there and shown. Okay, and we're going to skip down a little bit further. I don't think any of this needs to be changed by default. Come down to line 432, check out your belt options, your belt columns rather. As you can see here we have HP, HP, MP, and RV. HP is health potion, MP is mana potion, and RV is rejuvenation potion. You're going to want to change this to your setup, so if you're running all rejuves, you would just change all of these to RV. If you're wanting to change it to something else, you can do so. Make sure you do that before you start the bot, or it will toss all of those extra potions. Next, we're going to come down to lines 450 through 453, and this is your inventory. So if you picture this in your head, you have 4 slots for each of the columns, and then each of the rows have 10 across. So this is your inventory. You can do one of two things. You can memorize your inventory, or you can go in and take a screenshot and figure out where your torch and your Annihilus are so that you don't lose them. Important charms, whatever it is in your inventory that you don't want the bot to manage and or throw out so that you don't lose them. Because if you don't do this, you will lose them. So 0 means the bot can't touch it, it can't manage it, it can't pull anything out or drop or sell or stash or anything. So the way it's currently set up, the bot could not do anything once it gets full. It would just do nothing. It would just teleport around and you wouldn't find or get anything good or useful. So you're going to change the ones that you don't mind the bot using to ones. So 1, the bot can use, stash, sell, etc. 0, the bot is not allowed to do that. So just keep that in mind, make sure you get it correct, or you will lose torches, Annihilus, etc. The picket settings are here on lines 461 through 467. You also have some chest settings as well. I'm not going to go over these. This is a big point of contention. I do have a video in the link in the description to that video to show you how to use it and how to change it so that you don't have to worry about it and you can get the items that you want. A lot of people complain that it doesn't find anything, but by default the bot is taking high-end items and not a lot of the lower-end sockets and things that people generally want for their own purposes. So keep that in mind, and if you want to go in and edit that and change it, you can do so via the link in the description for that video. Coming down, we have shrines, we have declone. Again, a lot of this is not really that necessary. Um, it's not going to be all that important. I do want to focus on the attack skills, however. Attack skills are important and they need to work correctly, or else your bot is not going to attack anything and you'll likely get an error. So how this works is you have primary skill to bosses, primary aura to bosses, primary skill to others, and primary aura to others. And if you want to, not necessary, but if you want to, you can do secondary skill if monster is immune to primary, meaning your primary attack. So if you're a Hammerden and you're hitting the Act 2 wave of Bale, those are not going to hit those at all, and you can change to, say, Holy Bolt. And then you also have a secondary aura, something like Sanctuary, which may push them back and damage them as well. So where do you find these skills? Well, there's a website that you can go to, pretty easy, and that is right here, it is on the GitHub, and I will post that link also in the description so you can figure out which ones you would want to use. So with the Paladin, most people are going to run hammers with concentration, so you can see here, hammer is 112, so if we go back, primary skill to bosses, 112, primary skill to others, 112, and then our aura, we need to find that real quick. That's almost always concentration. Luckily it's the next one down, 113. Come back in here and plug those in. And that's pretty much all you need to do. I'm just using the Paladin as an example because that's the character I chose and I think most people would choose. And yeah, so that's that. Just make sure you get the proper ones. If you don't, you'll get an error message and you can come back in and fix it later. Okay, and just come down a little further. We have just a few more options to go over real quickly. Packet casting, I just strongly suggest you turn this on. It will look a little bit weird, but basically this just removes the animations for Diablo 2 and provides more stability for the botting program, and you're also faster on top of that, so keep that in mind. Dodge, in my opinion, is not as important for the Paladin as it is for the Sorceress, so depending on what type of Paladin you're using, if you're using like an FOH Paladin, it might be more useful than a Hammer Paladin. And then Telestomp is also really nice for immunities. Not so much of a problem with the Paladin, but for the Sorceress, that would be very helpful. And then at the bottom we have some class-specific settings, so these will be different with each class, but avoid dulls, you can set that to true. If you want to use Vigor and Charge, same thing, and Redemption. And then lastly, we have our gambling settings. For now, I probably wouldn't mess with these too much unless you're level 96 or higher. You could set it to true, and then you can tell it which ones to gamble. I kind of like the defaults myself, they're not too bad. And that pretty much takes us to the end of the care config file for now. Like I said, it's just a basic overview of getting it working and running. This is not going to be an in-depth explanation of every single setting on here because I already have videos going into that separately and in more detail. So after you're done with that, just make sure that you save it, and we'll move on to actually running the bot.